But you need to understand that my family has been submitted to threats. My family has been submitted to threats because of you. Death threats on my staff. You are violating my civil rights.
You are resisting.
I'm not resisting. I'm just strong.
By the Declaration of Independence, by our Constitution, we have a right, if our grievances aren't addressed, to alter or abolish that form of government. And I went on that premise when I kicked this inspector out, and I didn't want to abolish the health department, but I wanted them to alter their approach. And I demanded that they alter their approach because it was abusive, because it was tyrannical. And we have the right to do that. And because of that, we've been targeted, we've been subject to retribution. Fine. That's what America's about. People standing up and saying, no, you've crossed a line. You've crossed into my natural rights. And the government doesn't give us our rights. They're supposed to be here to protect them. Our rights are inherent. As John Locke said, they're natural rights. And as our declaration says, we consider these rights to be self-evident. They are things that we are born with. And we need to have a clear line that the government cannot go past, because we don't ask them for our rights. If necessary, we fight for our rights. I'm Kelly Walker. I'm one of 4 owners of Viva Coffee House. The health and safety of our clientele is very important, and we want to maintain that good relationship. We've always passed our health inspections with, I'd say, with flying colors. In this environment where you're raising kids, trying to keep the coffee shop going, trying to understand these constantly changing regulations, it's really hard to keep up with what's going on. So we reached out to the health department, told them what we were doing. We understood that they were very busy, and the message we got back was, it sounds like you guys are in compliance. So we figured everything was good. We were doing things fine. And I literally had an email in my inbox from the inspector saying, congratulations, everything's in compliance. And then I got a call from one of the local TV stations who said they were doing a story on businesses that have been cited for non-compliance. I said, well, we're not non-compliant. I have this in my inbox. And I had a very interesting conversation with the reporter, because I said, we've really been trying to be compliant. I had no idea they put us in this status. So I thought, why are we on this list? And then we noticed a huge spike in negative fake reviews, horrible comments on our social media. We started getting phone calls threatening us, threatening our staff. One of our young baristas who had just started picked up the phone, and she was called a horrible name, and I still didn't know what was going on. And I thought that our employees were scared to come to work. My wife, our families, my children's grandparents, they were all very scared. And I discovered, because somebody sent me a screenshot, that the county had this what's now being called a wall of shame, but they have a page on their site where they list businesses that are non-compliant. Well, we've been trying to be compliant. We had our first visit, which is supposed to be educational, so why are we on the wall? And I emailed the inspector and said, what's going on here? And she said, well, our supervisor decided that you were non-compliant and decided to put you on this website. And I said, well, we're getting this harassment, threats, all kinds of trouble. Can you please take us off? And she said, well, it takes about a week to get you off the wall. Meanwhile, it only increased, and we've had very specific death threats toward our family. One recently was, I've decided I'm going to kill myself, but before I do that, I'm going to kill you and your family. And having my wife's name, the number of our children, contact information for us posted online, doxing, basically. In this environment, my wife couldn't sleep. I had to ask people to come and sit and watch over our employees so they would feel at least somewhat safe going to work. And I started sending a series of emails to the county saying, hey, this is not okay. And we've tried really hard to work with you. We've enjoyed this good relationship. Why did you put us on this wall? And I never got an answer to that. And it got to the point where even some of our customers and followers on social media were being harassed. We began to be, I think, persecuted by the county even more. Instead of sitting down, educating, talking with us, they refused to answer these concerns and grievances. So finally I decided, well, I'm going to go to one of the county commission meetings. And I sent them in some papers, including some specific threats and harassment we had gotten. I emailed them and said, hey, I'm coming to talk about this. I went up to the front and I just started reading some of the comments, and it was very obvious if you watch the video that they were comments about our shop, not directed at the commissioners.
No, you're going to hear this because your health department made us hear this.
Mr. Walker?
You're going to hear this.
Mr. Walker, if
What?
you don't watch your language, I'm going to have you escorted out of the room.
Your health department threw us under the
Sir,
bus,
I'm
and the
asking
constant
you-
barrage of this kind of language
Sergeant at Arms,
has been sent.
please escort this man out of the hearing room.
No. Your health department threw us to the rage
Sir?
mob.
I've asked you to behave and to.
I have a right to speak.
Okay,
I have a right to speak.
let go of the podium.
I'll censor the language, but you need to understand
No.
that my family has been submitted to threats. My family has been submitted to threats because of you, death threats on my staff. You are violating my civil rights.
You are resisting.
I'm not resisting. I'm just strong. And you're going to hear from me. You're going to be getting a class action lawsuit. Let me get my things, please.
I'll grab them for you.
Is this how you want to do this?
Sir, I asked you to abide by
I need my
certain
phone.
rules, and you would not, sir.
And I thought, what in the world has just happened? What's going on? And I'm talking to some of the officers, and I basically was told they didn't want to do this, but they're afraid to lose their jobs. And the whole experience was very traumatic. But I also thought, is this really the way the county's doing this? Do we live in a country like this now? We had so many people show up. We had people who drove a couple hundred miles at least just to come here and support us. And I think what happened was when I was up there in handcuffs, they saw just a normal guy standing up and saying, enough. And they all felt like they were in handcuffs. They felt like somebody stood up and this is what we've been feeling. And it really inspired people to say, we've had enough of this. 14 days to flatten the curve has turned into months and months of what people have felt is just unreasonable. They use the word draconian measures that has destroyed businesses and livelihoods, spiked the mental health crisis in our country, led to suicides. All they want to know is, are they putting a mask on your face? The story has gone statewide, it's gone national to some extent. In spite of all this, pretty recently we invited the county inspectors back and said, look, we want to try this again. We want to know what we need to do to get to meet all of your specifications. And at the heart of this issue, because we put everything in place that they wanted, at the heart of this issue, it came down to the county claiming that we're anti-mask. There's this Tucson coronavirus updates. It's this horrible page on Facebook that's full of hatred and defaming people, calling people awful names. And what happens is this group of people on this Facebook page goes to the wall of shame from the county, throws it around, gets people together, and they do coordinated attacks on businesses, cyber attacks, even in person. And it's pure thuggery, and the county knows. And by the way, there are two commissioners who are vehemently opposed to all this, who demanded that Ramon Valadez apologize, which he should. And, in spite of all the threats and everything that we've had, they voted 3-2 to keep this wall of shame, which is unacceptable. When you think about families being threatened, mothers and children being afraid. And really the very specific issue was that we had, I think, 2 out of our 6 baristas who had health conditions. And we figured because they were easily able to keep that 6-foot distance, that it was fine because, like the U.S. Surgeon General said from the beginning, the distancing is the important thing. The masks are no substitute for that. We didn't want to be in the tough position of forcing a mask on someone that works here, because for all we know, we could be subject to a lawsuit if they had a health issue, and maybe it's an anxiety or PTSD breakdown, or maybe someone, we don't know, but maybe someone was abused and they can't stand having something around their face. We have customers who come in who can only read lips. They have hearing disabilities. So do we take off the mask so that they can understand us? The county then, after we invited them in, and this was, I think, last week, we sat down and got an idea of everything they wanted. And their response was, we had to close up the shop. We didn't know how long this could go on, but it was a real crisis for us. But 3 days later, after we had proven everything was in place, they put it back in place. The day when they delivered this notice of public nuisance, really, we're a public nuisance? They also delivered 2 injunctions against harassment against me toward women I don't even know about, which were orchestrated by this person who's stalking us, because we have all that information. But why would the county deliver these 3 things in one day that are unrelated? And you have to wonder, what's going on here? What is the bullying that's going on here? We don't understand. We don't understand this backlash when we've been trying to do our best. You know, people need to know this story, and we need to learn something from this. You know, we are going to keep fighting, and it's not just about our business. It's about everybody. It's about our freedoms. It's about not being forced to put something on our faces if our doctor says it could harm our health. It's about being able to do your business. This isn't just about a coffee shop. This is about all of us. We are going to win this, and we are going to get some of those rights back, and we're going to demand that government return to public service, not acting like little kings.